So the Mental Health Awareness Week runs from today until, which is like from the 9th till the 15th of this year. And as Cicely alluded to there, is that the Mental Awareness Week has already begun, and I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. And the theme is loneliness. Is loneliness. And this is one of the reasons why we come together to talk about these things, to make sure that how we're feeling, what's happening. And I was just looking at why they decided to put it as a theme of loneliness. And loneliness apparently affects millions of people in the UK every year, and it significantly actually contributes to poor mental health. And loneliness is an important factor contributing to higher levels of distress, resulting from people's sense of isolation and reduced ability to connect with others. As you can see from the pictures we have, there's two ladies there who don't look very happy. One has a fist over their face, and it just gives you an attribute of what they're sort of feeling and how they're sort of lying sort of in a state of despair. Next slide, please, for me, Cicely. So, as I said, feeling lonely is affecting my mental health. Then when you have poor mental health, it makes you feel lonely. And as you see from those two arrows, it becomes sort of a vicious cycle. And that you kind of keep in this rope where it takes you from one state of loneliness to mental health, then your poor mental health, and again makes you lonely. So it'd be good to have a look at ways in which people feel lonely, to hear their stories, how we can actually break the cycle as well. And from the pictures on your screen, we have somebody who sat down and has sort of a dark cloud on there all by themselves. We have another person sat down and you can see a picture of a brain, which means it kind of feels like things are overwhelming in a sense. And we also have an older gentleman who sat on a bench. And you kind of wonder sometimes when you see people on a bench for a lot, well, no, they're not talking to anybody. Are they lonely? Do they have anybody to talk to? I guess I can see some birds there, but is he engaging? How is he feeling? So these are all important things to think about. Next slide, please, for me, Cicely. So how to feel less lonely? And these are things and this is just some of the things you can do. Remember the connections you already have. So when you feel lonely, maybe try and think about who could I call, maybe check through your phone to see who you can message or call, or can I speak to my neighbor? Perform a random act of kindness. I think this could be something as little as, I keep saying, when you share a smile with somebody, guess what happens? They kind of tend to smile back, which is really good. Spend time with animals if you can. If you can, that makes you feel, it gives you a good feeling. Get in touch with somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. Join a new club or an activity. As you can see, people there, I guess they're dancing or having a good time. And remember also, you're not alone. Lots of people feel lonely. So with the discussions today, we're going to have a discussion around loneliness and whether you can actually identify that you're actually feeling lonely, and how can you make your life better to make yourself feel less lonely. And also just share with us situations that have made you feel lonely, even when you didn't actually realize that, it was out of your, out of your control. Situations that made you feel out of your control and made you feel lonely. So thank you for that, Cicely. I'm going to pass over to Ravina and Kasha, who are going to take us through our polls. So welcome anybody who's new today. Our theme today is about mental health and loneliness. And what we normally do is we usually have polls, and we have I think today we've got 2 questions. We answer those questions, and then we have a group discussion just to aid our discussion today morning, to hear more about loneliness and how we can tackle it and how we can raise awareness. Over to you, Kasha and Ravina.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So I'm just going to launch the polls. If anybody can tell me if they can see the polls, that would be great.
Not yet.
No, it has launched them. Can you see them? No, Cicely or Eva, I think you might need to launch the polls for me because it's not.
Okay. Yeah, I can do. Let me see if I can do it. Quick look.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you see them now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So the first one is, how common is loneliness and isolation in our community? And the second one is, as a community, how much do you think we associate loneliness and isolation with mental health?
Welcome. If you're just joining us, we're just doing the poll section. So we've got 2 questions which Ravina's gone through with us. You just need to click on the what you think your answers would be, and then we'll have a discussion about it.
Okay, so for me, I would probably say very common, because you don't know how many people are going through certain things, especially with depression or anything else. Or like when I see someone that's lonely, I normally approach them and ask them if they're okay, or if they need any like support or anything like that. So that's why I think I would put very common. Anybody else would like to speak?
Yeah, I also put very common, because I think that loneliness happens to more people than we think it does, because loneliness isn't just about being by yourself. You can feel lonely in a room full of people. So it's not always about how it looks, it's also about how you feel.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also COVID as well did bring more loneliness and isolation. You know, the things you used to take for granted, that you could see people. And then I remember the first times in lockdown, I think you could only go out for like 1 hour, and you couldn't meet with just anybody. You couldn't meet with any of your friends. And I wonder, now that COVID is kind of finished, some people haven't returned to the norm and started meeting other people, which can cause a lot of isolation and loneliness. And as also as Nyasha pointed out, you can be in a room full of people and still be very lonely. It just depends on how, what's happening with you, and what I think that vicious cycle of you being lonely, then it affects your mental health, and then you're back again. So even if you're people, you don't quite feel the interaction.
So the next one was common. Does anybody want to say why they said 38% of you said common? Does anybody else want to speak before we move on to the next question? Okay, no, I think we can move on to the next question.
So the second question was, as a community, how much do you think we associate loneliness and isolation with mental health? 90% of you, no, 25% of you said 90%, 50% of you said 50%, and then 25% of you said 10%, which is really interesting how the majority of you said it's like in between. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that you'd like to share, anyone?
I put 50%, because like I was saying before, I think a lot of the time people associate loneliness with people being by themselves.
Yeah.
Or, they're on their own because they're suffering with mental health. So that's why they need to be away from everybody.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. I mean, some people choose to isolate themselves. So I think isolation can be different to loneliness, because sometimes you need that away time.
Yeah.
To heal or think through or get through whatever it is you need to get through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, loneliness and isolation are two separate things. I mean, you can choose to be isolated. No one really chooses to be lonely.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. I think I agree with you mostly. I know that with some mental health issues, some people do end up isolating themselves kind of on purpose, but I know I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? But they're definitely two quite distinct issues, I would say as well. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else has any thoughts they'd like to share?
Yeah, I agree with the distinction between the two makes a big, I do apologize, my camera is not working today. Yeah, and I think I think loneliness causes people to feel empty, and as Nyasha said, and alone and unwanted. Whereas isolation can be different, like you can choose to isolate yourself, but then again, you can isolate yourself, which then causes loneliness, isn't it? You know, it's either or. Because I guess if you're feeling lonely, you're craving being in contact with people, aren't you?
Yeah.
In a sense, but then your state of mind makes it more difficult to form connections with people, which makes it very complex in a sense. Sometimes I think people would just be like, the question is about, do we associate it with mental health? I think previously I never used to, because some people can be like, oh, they just like to be by themselves. And some people are loners, I think, you know, and maybe they're okay being loners, you know. But it's whether it's at what degree then does it become a mental health issue? You know, I think it has to differ from person to person as well. Yeah, it's a different standard to everybody.
Yeah.
As Naasha said, you still have to take time off sometimes to regroup by yourself, which is a healthy kind of a way.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's a degree of how long you're doing it for and the nature of how you are as a being.
I think what you just said about it becoming a mental health issue, I think to me, what I think when it becomes a mental health issue is when it starts interrupting your everyday life. So like you said, you have the choice to be alone if you want to, and you have a choice to isolate yourself. But whether, I think when it becomes a mental health issue is when you're kind of out of control from that, and it's not really your choice. It kind of becomes, it kind of comes from within, and it disturbs your like everyday daily activities, and you kind of stop doing what you want to be doing. But I'm sure. Oh, James, you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, you've already mentioned a lot about what I was about to say. To begin with, I would like to just say today is International Nurses Day, and we want to thank all the nurses around us in the call today because of the hard work. Being that in terms of what you're saying, Cassia, and also perhaps Vina, is really around the reason you want to isolate. And why do you feel that you need to be alone? Is there anything that is tormenting you or on your mind that perhaps you're hesitant to discuss with people, or maybe you've done it before, nobody listened to you? Sometimes that can also make people isolate themselves. I entirely agree when Eva was saying sometimes it's an individual choice, perhaps, but we also need to consider where society can also push people in isolation. You can still be in a home with a lot of people, family members, but you still feel lonely. I think a lot of people have expressed that kind of concern that nobody really seems to bother about me. They don't check what's wrong with me. And so they're actually with people. So we need to be aware of how many people in our communities we are actually perhaps pushing away from us and not really allowing them to interact or integrate. So that's really important.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is because people feel unheard. or like they're not important. And if people don't understand you from where the level that you need to be understood from, then even though it's not their fault necessarily, that doesn't help. And then there's, I've forgotten. And then there's people who say they want to help, but will only help you with what they feel is helpful, which is also not helpful. But then it leaves you stuck because obviously you don't want to seem like you're being ungrateful. But if it's not helpful to you, then it's not really help.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else have anything to add? If not, we can move on to Cecily, who has a video for us, I think.
Yes, I do. And just to reinforce the conversation so far, it is quite encouraging to see the responses that you've given there in terms of how common we think loneliness and isolation is in our communities. Encouraging to see that the highest, percentage is aware, which is 63%, and that 8% feel it's not very common. Yes, they agree it is common, but not very common. But thankfully, none of you said it is not common. So that is encouraging because there is that level of understanding that there is an impact between loneliness and isolation. And that understanding actually helps in getting closer to addressing it as a community. Now, the part 2 of the question is whether there is that understanding of the link. And it was interesting to see 50% of us here feel that there is a link, but 90% of us feel it's only 25% impact or link, and 25% you feel it's only 10% link. So the two are somehow they are somehow interlinked, but to a certain level. But half of us feel there is 50% link. That is quite reassuring because it's a starting point to really addressing it. And if we had a chance to go into the depth of it, we'll actually come up with some, very well explained interactions, because it is those interactions that we miss out in, and so we tend to see it as not, one impacting on the other. However, the short video clip we are going to watch here may explain this further. So let me share it and see what you come up with and continue with the conversation. Just bear with me for that. Okay. All right, let's hear what you come up with. Oops, I think I'll need to share again. All right, over to you now.
Any one of us can feel lonely, anytime, anywhere. We can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. Some of us are more at risk than others, but research has shown that millions of us feel lonely some or all of the time. And long-term loneliness can make us feel anxious or depressed and have a serious effect on our mental health. Yet while millions of us experience feelings of loneliness, we can still find it hard to talk about. 1 in 5 of us hide our feelings of loneliness from others. It can be hard, but there are things we can do for ourselves and for others. Acknowledging we've all been there is a start. And by coming together, we can tackle loneliness. We can also help influence policy, support each other, and help prevent mental health problems. This Mental Health Awareness Week, we want to let everyone living with loneliness know that their mental health matters. And together, we can make change happen.
Yes, that is empowering to hear or to listen to, and clearly evidences what some of the things that you have discussed there. But let's hear what you think, or what you come out of that, or what you think of by watching that short video clip. Any views, any thoughts? Did I see your hand up, Nyasha? Oh.
No, but I will say something anyway. It just reminded us about a lot of the points that we had already made, and shows that obviously we need to be a bit more mindful of people and try to see what we can do to help. And I think learning to understand people from their perspective rather than looking at them from our own, it will be very beneficial.
Yeah, so it's about learning to listen to each other. It was interesting to hear that 1 in 5, it's only 1 in 5 who acknowledge that they are lonely. But what happens to the other 4?
I think that you have, it's an odd feeling to have, and especially if you're someone who is social, so you would probably convince yourself, well, I'm not lonely because I've got all of these people around me. But obviously if those people are not benefiting you, then that's why you would feel that way. So there's some of those people are probably in denial, and some of them probably don't even realize that that's how they're feeling.
So yeah, about the awareness, so not knowing, a very important point there. Yes, James.
I think the cultural dimension really is, for example, when we are working in the hub, I think Eva can witness this as well, in terms of how much opportunity that's been created for our vulnerable colleagues that, came all the way from different countries, and they are now refugees in Reading. And if you remember and also recall some of our memories growing up in an African context, there's a whole lot of connectivity, togetherness, group work, and all those things. You go to the farming group, you come from the farming group as a young boy. I can still recall those moments, and working on the farm, you don't do it alone. There's a group opportunity there as well. And these people come and they find themselves in one room in the hotel. They wake up, there's nobody to even say hello to except her family back home. So it's really important to bear that in mind as well as we go along. And I think the hub seem to have created that meeting point for them to feel really connected, and you can feel the joy in their eyes, in their faces, in their mood when they are here. So it's really important for us to be able to recognize, even our own little families, who is not connecting. Why are they not connecting? What does it mean to be lonely? I mean, from an African perspective, loneliness can mean a lot to me. It could be just not able to talk to somebody. Some people might find perhaps somebody not calling me, I feel lonely. And it's really important for us to understand our own loneliness, even not now, in the past, and how did we manage it? And with the current state of affairs, I think all over the world, but we need to appreciate from where we are, the hardship. Who is being pushed back? by the hardship? Who are we not seeing anymore because they don't have transport to come to see us? They don't have data to call us, they're not able to make it to meetings. How do we know that they are not lonely? So it's really important for us going away today really to reach out to one or two people. And I think that's all really I want to add when Cecily was saying 1 in 5, what about the 4? We don't know. And sometimes it's really important, how do we know that somebody's lonely? How do you know that you are lonely? And when we look at mental health issues, even the United Nations is talking about over 300 million people who are depressed at any given time. I mean, all of those people, who is reaching out? How are they reaching out? Because depression can make you feel a bit isolated, can make you feel a bit lethargic, can make you feel I don't bother because nobody cares. So it's really a good conversation to have, but it's also about us reflecting and being more aware of our loneliness and others around us.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much. And you've given reference to the community hub there. It would be good to hear from Lavina and Kashi at some point of what that hub is about and how well it has been so far, or how productive it has been so far. But for now, we have quite a good number of people with us here that we've not seen for a while. Pastor Thomas, you're very much welcome. Susan, very much welcome. Mark, Victor, and Emeka, we'll bring you in at some point. Thank you, Pastor. We'll want your input at some point. But for now, I would want to bring Susan in. Susan, please, let's hear from you. Susan Gure, your hand is up.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Susan.
Yes, what I want to say is, when I look at it from my own perspective as an ethnic minority or as an African, the reason why people struggling with mental health issues actually disconnect or probably isolate themselves is because of the stigma that surrounds mental health. Because most people of the African background have trauma not being accepted by the community that they are actually struggling with mental health problems. So because they feel the community around them doesn't understand them, so they tend to keep to themselves, and that brings a lot of isolation. So it is the stigma that surrounds it that makes most people probably isolate. That's all I've got to say for now.
And you're very much right there, Susan. And the reason why we have these conversations is to really break those barriers, to address issues of stigma, to make mental health conversations normal. I mean, most of us, all of us here will be very comfortable phoning a friend and saying that you have a headache. But very rarely will you hear them call somebody to say, they are feeling low. And first of all, they don't want to mention the word mental health, which we all have. We all have mental health. But very few will call a friend to say, I'm experiencing some difficulties. And more so to call it mental health. We'll go round and round to describe what it is. All that is to do with the stigma. And the mental health first aiders who are in the platform, your role continues of breaking those barriers and really challenging the stigma that we find or we come across out there. And the stigma is not just within the communities, but also within ourselves. We can self-stigmatize, but how do we challenge ourselves? Or how can somebody else there challenge us? And if we are challenged, would we take it kindly? So it's our responsibility to really challenge the stigma within ourselves and that which is out there. Now, I also noticed Nisa is with us. Nisa is joining us all the way from Indonesia. That's right.
Hi everyone.
Please, Nisa,
Hi everyone. Hi. Thank you, Cecily, for sending me the link. I'm sorry I can't put I'll try to put my video on, but I'm not sure how my Wi-Fi will fare with that. But hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I joined this conversation. I think Ravina and Kasia, you both are doing amazingly well to be the co-host with Cecily. And I'm very happy that this conversation will bring the importance of mental health. And this is one proof that we're supporting each other, and hopefully that those who are experiencing loneliness and isolation, finding this Zoom meeting are as useful or something that is helpful, because I certainly did during lockdown. This is the family I had, and I'm very grateful that I'm still part of it. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this community. Back to you, Cecily. It's good to see everybody.
Oh, it's lovely to hear your voice, Nisa, there. And thank you for zooming in, because we were beginning to feel the loneliness without you. So very welcome to your part of this conversation as we go forward. So let's continue with the conversation, but before we continue, I'll bring in Mark. Mark, please come in, tell us about Recovery College and what you have out there. Would be useful.
Hi, Cecily. Good afternoon, Cecily. Lovely to see you as well, Cecily. And thank you so much for inviting me. And there's quite a few people here. I recognise Nisa, Chuck. It's been a long time. Lovely to see you. And I think Dana was here earlier. So there's quite a few people I'm quite aware of. And it's such a, it's such an important topic, Cecily. I believe, I remember you was, when you were at Campus Recovery College, you set up a coffee and chat group, and that's so vital within the community, and something that Campus now still carries on 5 years later. Every week we have a coffee and chat group. Every Tuesday morning, every Friday morning we have a talk walk. We have a gardening for wellbeing group, and what we're hoping to do this summer as well is to bring some more community events. We're going to have some one-offs so people can try it as well. For many people as well, it's one of those things where we're not sure what can we do and what we'd like to do. So we're going to have sort of yoga, Pilates. We're doing yoga at the moment as well. That's on a Thursday. So I think I'll try and put in the chat our website. And please have a look at our website. So it's such an important topic for many people, mental health, loneliness, and that sort of definition of loneliness. It's that social play. And I think Susan said it very, very kindly earlier. We at Compass recognise the stigmatisation of socialisation and loneliness. For many people, especially of an older generation, it was seen as a kind of a no-no to speak about, and we want to remove that stigma. We want to take away those barriers. Our most popular workshop that we ever take at Compass, without doubt, is our coffee and chat. We're at the Biscuit Factory in the centre of Reading every Tuesday morning at 10:30, and we get upwards of 15, 16, 17 members. The problem we have actually is it's too popular, and sometimes we're just kind of expanding. And the Biscuit Factory have kindly given up us taking over every single seat, so they just give us a whole section now of the Biscuit Factory. And what we want to do as well is we want to recognise as well is that for many people with mental health and mental well-being, sometimes actually just being in other people's company, like this wonderful group, is what you want. Sometimes it's just to be in that company. I was at Job Fest in the Penta Hotel on Tuesday, and I think about 2/3 of the attendees were actually people from the Hong Kong community who were displaced both due to economic and social or political reasons, or a matter of all three. And I remember one gentleman was telling me that though he was very grateful, that he was at the opportunity, he missed home, and then somebody, missed being around family and loved ones, and that for all of us, it can hit home at any time. I was reminded of the famous saying by the first person to ever reach both poles, both the North Pole, South Pole, and to climb Everest, a Norwegian explorer called Erling Kagge, who said, when they said, weren't you isolated and lonely reaching all these big events? He reached both poles and the Everest. He said, no, I kind of enjoyed being alone, but he said, I lived in New York in my 20s, and I didn't, the largest city in the world, most compact city in the world, and I didn't know a soul, and it was the loneliest time of my life. And I think that's very, very true. We can be surrounded by everyone and yet feel very lonely. And it's when we're with people of our own understanding and our own sort of a combined and shared passion that we kind of feel that mutual and shared enjoyment together. And I think it's so important that that's hopefully what we're going to be doing at Compass over the summer. So please, I'll try and put in the chat. Hopefully, I usually spell everything wrong, so please do bear with me a second. So I'll try and put it in there. Give us a shout, give us a call, and we'd love to chat. We've got some lovely workshops on this summer, and if you just want to pop along for our one-off sessions, please do so. And keep going, because I think these sort of groups, especially in mental health work, awareness, loneliness week as well, is just vital. I couldn't recommend. I just think it's just wonderful. So yeah, thank you, Cecily.
And before you go, Mark, can I check whether you still run the Hearing Voices group?
We do have our Hearing Voices group. It's going to be back. We had a little break, but it's been going for about 4 years now, but we're hopefully going to be back in the summer. We're all kind of, due to sort of contracts and everything. So hopefully we'll be back in the summer, and hopefully we'll be back. We're going to be taking them hopefully at Reading Central Library. Due to cuts, Reading Central Library is closed on a Wednesday, but Compass have the entire library. So if you want to come along for our Hearing Voices group and hopefully a psychosis group as well. Many people through COVID anxiety, we saw a huge increase in psychosis in psychiatric hospitals, and we want get to people, help people back in. And so thank you for bringing this up, Cecily, because it is my group, so it's something I've experienced personally and still do, and something very close to my heart. So hopefully we're going to be back this summer with Hearing Voices group at Reading Central Library every Wednesday.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark, for that. And I'll now hand over to Cassia and Lavina. Over to you, please. Take us through this.
So the next person who would like to speak is Victor, please.
Hello, everyone. I was kind of like contemplating there for a moment whether Mr. Koroma is also somewhere.
No.
The group. So anyway, hello, everyone. My name is Victor. Let me reintroduce myself again. My name is Victor Nkwo. I've been part of the Eka Utulivu family for quite a while. And I've had my stories told. I've told my stories about mental ill health and loneliness and isolation for quite a while. But fortunately, there's always some way out, whether it's through clinical treatment or whether it's through therapeutic conversations like this, counseling. This is something that we continue and we must continue to talk about and to encourage ourselves to be open about it. I think we're quite fortunate that in this country over a couple of years now, we've had a lot of celebrities, high profile people actually testify about their own challenges with mental ill health. But what I wanted to say to you guys is in the last couple of months, I've been kind of like running around doing different contracts, doing different jobs and stuff like that. And recently I started working here at Reading Borough Council in a new contractual role as a funding officer. And I thought I'll let you guys know, but also to share some very, very important information with yourselves, especially the Utulivu team, as well as ACAR, briefly. There are, as you may be aware, support coming from the council with things like energy bills, electricity and stuff like that. And the council is quite keen to push this out. And usually when they try to promote this type of services that sort of depend on BME-led groups, like Utulivu, ACAR, to try as much as possible to share that information within the BAME communities as much as possible. Now, the one particular support that I wanted to share with you guys is the energy support, which a council has commissioned Citizens Advice Bureau with the welfare rights and community care to help provide that service to the public. At the moment, there's an open offer to older people. Anyone in pensionable age has the opportunity to claim some of these benefits. The way the council is done is that when it comes to the pensioners, it's open and general. It's not means tested. So anyone who considers themselves to be in that pensionable age is free to apply for this support. Unfortunately, ACA doesn't have any direct involvement in this or Utulivu, but there are organizations that we can approach. So Welfare Rights up in Oxford Road, they've got that information. Citizens Advice Bureau has some information as well, and Community Care in Cemetery Junction. So I wanted to just point this out because I'm quite aware of the fact that a lot of pensioners don't really access these supports whenever it's available. And even right now, as we speak, it is younger people, single parents, people on benefits who are actually accessing this support at the moment. And those statistics are coming from the Citizens Advice Bureau. So I just wanted to put this out there, share with ourselves, that anyone who's connected to any older person, please feel free to stop by Welfare Rights, pick up a form, and then just fill it in and submit it, and they'll respond positively. Just another brief comment is that we've got some small grants which have been published and is being promoted right now. It's up to £10,000, £5,000 for single projects, £10,000 for partnership projects. So I just wanted to flag that up as well for us, those of us who have any responsibility for fundraising or leadership within the voluntary community sector organizations to have a look at that. And on a personal level, I'm kind of like really promoting the partnership working bit of it. I think organizations who can come together to put together proposals up to £10,000 will be in a stronger position to actually get that support. But then it doesn't preclude anyone actually doing something independent and individual. So thank you very much for the opportunity just to share this with you. We will have another colleague who's actually, his remit is community engagement. So he will be coming out, to speak to groups in the near future about the work that he's doing. I actually just came in here today to just, participate in this event, but also to share the information I've already just shared with you guys. So thank you very much for listening. And I really appreciate the fact that I can work locally and still aspire to provide support voluntarily, as I normally do at ACA and Utulivu. As much as when I'm able to carve up time, I should be able to attend these meetings quite regularly. But for now, it's going to be quite challenging. It's early days yet. I'm still inducting and working around. So you know how it is. You try to do your best to make sure that you impress your employer. So that's where I am. But thank you very much.
Victor, thank you so much for that. Can I check with the support from the council? How rigorous is the application form, or is there support? With
I think the team that they're building at the moment, they've given us the discretion to be more proactive to support organizations with fundraising, planning, even as much as possible to be able to build a capacity for colleagues in the voluntary and community sector to be able to submit very good applications. In fact, we're doing some data analysis at the moment, which we hope to share with the wider voluntary and community sector, and certainly we will come to this group to highlight those. There is. I mean, there are changes happening, and from my understanding, even the council is actually looking at recruiting a top officer to develop and strengthen the partnership between the voluntary sector and the council.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Victor, for that. Next person is Pastor Thomas, who would like to speak.
is that, I'm not sure if that was me. Did you say Pastor Thomas? Oh. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And now that we are talking about individuals suffering from a sense of loneliness, this is it's clearly there are individuals who have mental health issues that suffer from a sense of loneliness, but obviously it's much wider than that. It can affect anyone at any time, and as others have mentioned already, it's accessing programs and meetings such as this one, but also face-to-face meetings where individuals can simply talk with others, and that's really where Reading West Church is available to the community. We have a number of meetings, and you don't have to agree with everything that's being said, but it's good to just see people taking part and offering their voice to the conversation that's going on. I was also interested in the last Victor, who spoke just before myself. He mentioned that there's a couple of grants that may be available from the council. I did contact him privately on the chat and ask. We have a seniors club that we're trying to get off the ground at the moment, recovering from COVID. That would be available. We're looking at the moment, it's on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And we're also trying to get a food bank and possibly a clothes bank off the ground and running as well. So we're looking for volunteers as well as financial support in some of these projects. Reading West Church, I'm not sure if everyone knows where Reading West Church is, but if you can think of the big Tesco's on Oxford Road, we're at the back of the big Tesco's, there's a petrol station, and we are directly across the road from that petrol station. Now, recovering from COVID has been a slow and drawn out process, but our building is available for use. And if there are any community projects that are running at the moment and you're looking for accommodation, please do feel free to contact me to see what so that we can see what it is that you need and what it is that's available on offer for us at Reading West. At the moment, the weekdays, especially in the day, is an opportunity for someone to make use of the facilities that we have there. So Reading West, to summarize then, we have meetings that we are running already, which anyone is available to come to those meetings. We are planning new projects, seniors clubs and food banks, etc. And if anyone would like to use the facilities at Reading West, you can all contact me. Cicely has my mobile phone number and I'll place it into the chat. Thank you all very much for that. God bless now.
Thank you, Pastor.
Pastor, thank you so much. And before Ravina comes in, I may have missed this, but did you mention that we can hire the place, or anybody can hire the place for a program?
Yeah, we hire the building for, obviously, for weddings and funerals and special family life event occasions, but we are available also for communities, especially to community groups that are working on for the well-being of the community members. So as one of the things that I just mentioned was the Seniors Club. if there's a group in the community that would like to run a seniors program on a regular basis, whether that's every week or every other week or something of that nature, we're open to most businesses, but we prefer to have those who work on behalf of the well-being of community members.
Thank you, Pastor.
Okay, no problem. God bless.
And I believe Chuck is next.
Hi everyone. Hope everyone is well. I just wanted to say that these talk sessions are really great for just connecting with people, and also having the opportunity to testify about your own experience. And so I do find these sessions really beneficial. But one thing I wanted to say was that in my professional role, I work at an out of hours crisis service, mental health crisis service called Breathing Space. And we're based in the centre of town on Friar Street, in Launchpad's offices at the moment, and we help people who are going through mental distress and mental ill health have a safe space for their voice to be heard, and we also help with coping strategies and well-being plans, and even safety plans, if that's what the client requires of us. So we are open Fridays to Mondays, 5 p.m. to 11, and I'll put some information in the chat about how to get in touch as well, just in case you or anyone that you may know is going through mental distress or mental ill health and needs some help if they're in a crisis. So and just as another note as well, I'm very privileged to do the work that I do through my own mental health struggles. I just find that it's so needed, and yeah, I just hope that if you have any questions, again, I'll put some information in the chat in how to get in touch as well.
Thank you so much, Emeka, for that, and especially for sharing, for becoming vulnerable and talking about your own personal experience, but also the professional skills or knowledge and experience that you have in helping others. Now, I'm aware of the few sessions that you have run in the community with a view of raising awareness, but also helping people build the resilience that they need based on your own personal experience. And for those who don't know, Emeka has been doing some podcasts. If you go to the community radio, you hear some of the programs or talks that he has delivered out there. And as an out of hours worker at the Breathing Space, I can only imagine the number of people that you come across. And so the same case with Mark at the Recovery College. I'm sure you interact with so many different people.
Yes.
And actually, yeah, becoming vulnerable and sharing your own experiences to get people to work with you goes a long way. As we have said, we have always said, none of us is immune to mental health. We all have mental health after all. And with the loneliness and isolation we have learned today, we all experience it at one time or another. So I take my hat off you, Mark, and Emeka for sharing that. So as a community, we are so privileged to be having people like Mark and Emeka who can come and share not only their experiences, but the support they are offering out there for those who could be going through the same experiences.
Yes, definitely so.
Thank you, Cecily.
Fantastic. So let me share another short video clip. We comment on it, and then we will have a few questions, maybe for each other, but also for James at some point, and for Mark while he is still here. So let me share this. The clip is about the need to lift each other. Yeah, as we go through the journey of loneliness and isolation, there is need to lift each other, and how we do that will pretty much determine how far we go as an individual as well as a community. We always say it is in helping others that you feel strengthened and empowered to do more. It's one of the 5 ways of well-being. So I'll share it now.
Know someone who might be feeling lonely? There are some simple things you could do that could give them a lift, like inviting them for a walk, catching up over coffee, or sending a text.
And as over half of us have felt lonely at some point, it may help you feel less lonely too.
Now, I'm not sure how much you saw. It was very, very quick and short, but very informative. Lifting each other with a cup of tea, with a chat, with a walk, and all that is what Mark and others are offering out there. But let me hear, what are your comments on that?
Hello, Cecily. Yeah, it was quite fast. I just thought it was beginning to start, but then it ended. So didn't really have enough time to think much about the reaction. But I think just to express a view about the journey we've all made so far, coming from the lockdown to this point where we have the opportunity to still meet virtually, but also the opportunity to be able to meet maybe face to face. And just thinking more about the men's group during the lockdowns, what the challenges that we're going through, trying to keep in touch with those who are isolated and probably living lonely. I was just wondering and thinking out loud, where we are now, given the fact that we can meet up and get connected, practically face to face to encourage each other. I think some of the challenges that we face really are a combination of aspects that we have to deal with: issues of unemployment, issues of economic disadvantage, all this type of stuff that happens, which sometimes we don't have the opportunity to share. So I'm just sort of thinking, beyond meeting virtually, are there any possibilities that we can find ways that we can reach out to people? Like I said, the funds are out there. It's really up to the groups, to go for them. And I think the whole well-being and mental ill health support is something that, as the consequences of the lockdown, governments are really trying as much as possible to provide the resources for us to support each other. So, just thinking out loud. I mean, not really an interpretation of that clip, but of course, I'd like to see that clip again. Maybe I'll probably pay a little bit more attention to understand what it was about. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it is an interpretation to that, Victor, because what you're calling for is what the clip mentioned, calling somebody for a walk, for a cup of tea, or for whatever it is that will make you connect. So it could be anything and everything, which is quite important. And on that note, really, I would want to bring Lavina and Cassia in to tell us a little bit more about the hub, who is, the hub is doing exactly that, or that is their vision, and see how we can all get to be part of that. So over to you, Cassia and Lavina.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cecily. So every Tuesday during at the Community Hub, which is on the Oxford Road, where we work, we do tea and coffee mornings for the refugees and other people who want to join out of public. So what we do is we do bingo, we do art therapy and other activities. And also we have James, who's always there with us. And the refugee guys come in and they feel really happy that we're there to help them, speak to them. Even James is there as well, so he speaks to them as well, even though they have language barriers, but they're communicated by bingo, which they really love. We had quite a few people that knew that were coming in as well. So at one point we had 24 people and we even ran out of bingo cards. So that's how well we did. And that's what we do really at the community hub. Everyone's welcome. It's from 11:30 to 1 o'clock every Tuesday. And we'll update you on more on the hub soon.
Fantastic. Oh, good. Yep. Mark.
Right, can I just ask Cassie and Ravina where the hub is?
It's on Oxford Road.
Well, yeah, whereabouts on the Oxford Road?
Right by the mosque.
Battle Hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it pretty close to there? I'll message you so I can. It's just so that it sounds like a wonderful thing to say to. We've got lots of people from diverse communities coming into campus, and it's so important to make sure that people find a real place where they can find home, etc. Where they can find a community that really suits to them and works for them as well. So the more context we can have. I've just realised, Victor. I didn't realise, Victor. I walked past you in the Civic the other day. I think I opened the door for you. I realised where you are. You're on the second floor in the Civic in the meeting room, aren't you? And I felt terrible. Yeah. I am literally. I felt awful. I was just sitting there thinking, I know where Victor is. I think you're in this middle, in the second floor, front north. I think. I'm gonna. I don't mean, Cecily, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to badge you, Victor. I will find you there. I'm just going to ask you questions. And I'd love to do it because we really need to find people. We have people who are kind of a little bit lost sometimes. And it is about matching them up with the right service at the right time, if that makes sense. We recommend where Chuck works, and it's for people when they're it's a difficult time, because effectively we're a 9-to-5 service, and the things that Chuck does just fantastic, offering his own lived experiences to people out of hours, and we need to kind of support people like that full time, services like yours in the community on the Oxford Road, where there's such a diverse community as well, will be so helpful.
Fantastic. This is the power of the Thursday conversation, Mark. We meet on here virtually, and then we find ourselves meeting physically. So great. Yes, and Battle Hospital Gate, I'm sure Eva will tell you more about that. But Eva, back to you, Cassia and Ravina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cecily.
You're great. Yeah. Eva, back to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I had to nip out for a bit. Yeah, Mark, we are on 344 Oxford Road.
Brilliant.
Which is right by the Battlefield Hospital. And so we do have quite a number of activities which we're planning to go, and we're reaching quite a number of people from our community, which is great. I was just attending one of our community participatory research finalizing project that's been done, which been funded by Health Education England. And I think from that we got 2 researchers, Tariq and myself. And I think the whole purpose of it, I do apologize, my video is not working. The whole purpose of it is just getting the community voices listened to the service providers. And it was such a good platform to be able to showcase what the community was saying about the healthcare services that they receive, and hopefully we should be able to reduce the gap on the health inequalities that we've seen for such a long time. So I guess a lot of work will be coming out of that, and you should be getting publications of the research work that we've undertook for the last 1 year. And we got some certificates, which was good, which we'll share with the communities as well. There's a lot more work going on as well. There's Vaccination Champions, which has just started. So we're looking for people who want to do that. Please do send me a message if you want to get involved in that as well. We have our annual conference coming up in July, which I'll send details of where and when specifically. But we have lots of good activities coming on. I know we have a few minutes coming on, so let me introduce James to give us our take home for today. And please feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Eva. Thank you, everybody. And I think it's been a very interesting topic, and I know it's happened every week, every year, but I know, and everybody on the call is aware that mental health is there all the time. So we just using this opportunity today to have a context to what it is like to be lonely and how it can actually affect your mental well-being. I would really want to focus on a research that's been recently carried out by University Mind. I think there's an organization in this country where they look at student affairs in universities across the country. And I was really quite interested in some of the outcome. And to share this with us is really to put us into that context, that mindset, because maybe most of us have had students, most of us will be having students to university very soon, and a lot of kids are about to take their GCSE and they'll be going to college, and others will be trying to pursue academic training in universities across the country. So what this research really is telling us, or me, is that it's important for us from the BAME background to be more mindful of some of the things that perhaps we have not been taking note of. So they kind of discovered that 23 to 29% university students have had a diagnosed disorder of mental health problem. They have it, they have been diagnosed. So just imagine that's a big number, 23 to 29%. And that includes our own children as well. But do we know, are we aware of some of these things? How do we support them? So I'm really trying to link this to loneliness that we're talking about. When our kids are in our houses with us in the family, how much do we know about their issues? How much do we know about them? How much do they know about us? How much do they connect? Are we connected? At what level? For what reason? So it's really important to bear that in mind. Just imagine 23 to 29 students. They have a diagnosed mental health problem. This is not something that they're going to assess, but they have the diagnosis already. And 20 to 27, really, they score like 0 to 4 out of 10 life satisfaction. I mean, they were asking them, are you satisfied with life in general? And only 0 to 4, most of them. And that's like 20 to 27% of the entire population of students, those that they were able to reach out. Just imagine how difficult that might be to ask your son or your daughter, how satisfied are you with things? How much do we find time to do those things? So this is all part of loneliness. They isolate them, they isolate us because we don't know what's going on in their mind. Little did the parents of those 0 to 4% or 20 to 27% really were aware that those children, those young people are not really satisfied with life. So it's really important to bear that in mind. And 72% actually describe that themselves as having experience of mental health issues. In addition to those that have the diagnosis, you have about 72% said we have had this, we experienced it, either from our family or somebody in the community, but they did mention that. And 47% of the students are actually struggling with mental health issues at uni and also at home. And they were also among the percentage, the 47% that were saying we don't talk about it, we don't disclose it to clinicians, we don't access services at all. And there's been a recent data also on assessing risk of suicide. And there was a huge percentage of young people who have taken their lives. So the whole idea was they didn't talk to anybody before taking their lives. So you can imagine how that silence, that isolation can lead people to a very bad place. So I brought that just for us to have a context because even in the hub, we have young people who are actually reaching out to other young people. And we have champions who are quite young in trying to really understand what mental health issues are. So this data is putting us into that mindset. It's really allowing us as parents on this, or grandparents, or uncles and aunties, to begin to invest in trying to really talk about certain things that we don't normally talk about. I think to be irregular is nothing bad about it. So we need to really walk out of the box most of the time. I know there are so many taboos and so many family issues, beliefs in the family around illnesses, but we need to break that barrier, because some of these barriers really are kept there because of us. I don't think there's anything that was there before we came. These are things that we have created through socialization and also development and improvement, education, and what have you. So we can actually break these barriers if they're affecting us. So we should not adhere to them just because they've been adhered to 20 years ago or 50 years ago. Things are changing. And change is one single element or concept that we just don't change at all. You have to just put up with change, because it's there all the time. So we need to understand that. So for me, really, a tip today really is about trying to understand at what level do you begin to feel isolated or lonely? And what allowance have you got in your own capacity to ensure that somebody is not lonely around you? How do you reach out? How do you encourage people to reach out? So we go from today really in terms of trying to work hard to minimize loneliness. And I'm glad there are a lot of faith leaders here in the call today. And sometimes I'm a Catholic, I go to church, and there are people who are actually part of the congregation, but they are lonely, you know. And so we need to understand that by just going to church with people doesn't mean that there's no loneliness. In fact, there are a big number of loneliness in places like that, because people are very much geared towards praying to their God and just being in communion with God. But what about the people around you? What about the people you sit on the same aisle with when you are in church? How much connected are we? I totally understand the impact of COVID and the hybrid nature of life today, because everything seems to be very smart. You can attend church from your kitchen, your bedroom, from your sitting room, wherever you are these days because of Zoom. And also like what we're doing today, which is really good. This is weekly interface is good. But let's also try to look at how do we step out and begin to normalize things, meeting people, you know, like we have in the hub, like the Recovery College has got their coffee time or mornings. You know, how many of these can we generate in Reading? How many meetings can we have? How many spots can we create to meet and chat and go for walk, exercise? And I think one of the clips in the beginning Eva was talking about was really about activities. And that seems to be key. Activity can actually minimize isolation, whether you are doing it with people or not. The fact that you are out can make you feel part of your society, your immediate environment. So let's really try to build capacity around ourselves and also the people we work with and people that we can notice. And for me, this research I've shared with you is really to put our young people in that context and also our elder people, or the older people we have. There are a lot of elderly people among us who are not able to join this forum every week. But let's make effort this week to reach out to one or two and to see how we can actually help them to minimize loneliness. And I'm glad our brother Victor is, looking at opportunities for people to have support. But let's look at how many people are not going to be able to come to town. How many people among us will not be able to even know whether Victor is working there or not. So some of these funds might never get to them. So how do we put that into efforts? So let's use all the different outlets we have, like the hub and the Recovery College and the other opportunities around. You know, we need to really have outlets for people who otherwise we don't have any voice or any capacity or any physical ability to reach out. And when we look at giving people voice, it's not really taking it and giving it to them on the plate. It's to empower people to develop and reach the voice they want to reach. When I hear people say, I'll give you a voice, I don't think there's any mechanism that anybody can give me a voice. You can allow me to develop the voice I want to develop. You can provide an environment that is enabling, enhancing. And I think the Wellbeing Hub is a fantastic source for that, or resource for that. The Wellbeing group that Mark was talking about is another fantastic medium. And the system Victor is working with is another fantastic medium as well. And also when Emeka was talking about the breathing space in Reading, it's another space where you go and reach out and get your voice back and then have people listen to. There's something boring about listening, but for me, listening can also be healing. So just maybe listening to your child at home and not interfering, not interrupting when they are saying anything, just listening to maybe make sense of what is going through their mind is really powerful. So as we go away, it's really important to start with ourselves. How much lonely are you? How do you know? What does it mean? How can you minimize it if you can? And how do you suspect other people? And how are you aware of their own loneliness, and what can you do? And so let's use all the opportunities that we have. And I really want to say thank you so much for this opportunity for all of us. And I'm glad Nisa was saying this thing started during the COVID, is still going on, and she felt belong. And it was like this became my family, you know, whether second or first family. But that feedback is really important for us to see how relevant it is for us to continue to catch up, meet, talk, interface. But things are changing and we need to be part of that change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And that's it. So let's all have a good weekend, unless anybody has anything. No, we're all good. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you,
And I'll
guys.
see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.